the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, has its own share of critics. Interestingly, there are two groups of critics. One of them saying that the EPA is too strict and is going too far, and then another group of critics that say the EPA is not going far enough. So pro-nature, pro-conservation. Of course, they're saying the EPA is not going far enough. We should shut down the polluting factories. We should be stricter on waste, and we should enforce stronger recycling laws. So that's one side is saying it's not going far enough, and the other side is going, you're too far. You're making it hard for the average American to earn a living because these rules are, these critics say that these EPA laws and regulations are based on bad science. If you don't like what somebody's doing, one of your highest priority targets is to doubt their logic. It goes as simple as they did it because they're stupid. You doubt their logic. So the critics of the EPA is saying that their science is bad, and that's why their conclusions are wrong, and that's why the rules they make and are enforcing are wrong. And every other way to try to get the EPA off of the backs of business owners, corporations, so the economy is free to run along as they want. And that has always been the case. Some always want to use up what we got, use up what we have because we need the money. And then there's other groups saying, no, I know we need the money, I know times are hard, but we need to protect what we have so that future generations can enjoy it too. So the EPA is in charge of air, land, and water, and let's take a look at a couple of things they do. For air, among other things, they produce an air quality index, and that's something in your homework assignment. To go to your local weather channel, your local weather website, whatever you use to find out what the temperature is going to be today and whether it's going to rain or snow, and find somewhere on that page where it reports the air quality index. For most of you, you didn't care because most of you have no respiratory problems, you have no special respiratory needs. So why would you look? The only time you might have cared was if there was like a special air alert. Last year, the sky turned orange in New York City because of the forest fires all the way up in Canada. Yes, I know, like, how can there be a fire? It's so cold today. It's not the cold temperature, but it's so dry and windy. So if there was a fire, then the dry, windy air will blow it over to any other flammable materials like nearby buildings, piles of paper, etc. So that's what people were being warned about. Anyway, so for us, that was about the extent of our air quality considerations. But for people who do have a respiratory disease, like asthma, COPD, chronic bronchitis, then they actually do watch the air quality alert. So your homework assignment is to go to your favorite weather website, whatever you use to plan your day, and find the air quality index warning or air quality index number and just say what it is. And if you said, I couldn't find it, that's not an acceptable answer. It's there, you just got to dig for it. So when you talk about air pollution, there's outdoor pollution and indoor pollution. We really don't, we don't hear much about outdoor air pollution in New York City much nowadays. In fact, other than the forest fire concerns, I haven't really seen air quality being a top news article. Well, I guess the last few months, the politics dominated the news, and it will for a while. But even like last year or the years I've been teaching this course, there hasn't been much air quality news like smog or acid rain or ozone in like the last decade or two. And I credit the EPA. I credit the Environmental Protection Agency. I also credit, humanity. This is one place where humanity did good. They recognized the threats to the environment that these three outside air pollutants caused, and they passed laws. Even here in capitalist United States, they actually were able to pass laws that helped reduce these. When I was a child, I remember riding in the back of my parents' car, driving to Manhattan, and through the Long Island Expressway or the Southern State Parkway, and I see the skyline of New York City in the distance. I remember there was always this orange haze at the low level across the horizon, and that was smog back several decades ago. But you don't see that anymore. So good job. Good job, EPA. Good job, America. Good job, humanity. At least we got our air pollution. At least it's not visible anymore. We can't say the same outside the U.S. though, because if you Google for smog, and then you see these horrible, terrible-looking pictures from elsewhere around the world. California. I wonder how if it's a current image or an older image. Good job, America, and good job, EPA. Current problems, though, that you do have to deal with these days are indoor pollutants. Allergens, again, for people who do have a respiratory problem, that is something on their minds. But then they have taken steps, like they bought a special air filter for their house. And mold is always an issue, especially if you have a basement, especially if your basement has a leak, then you have to worry. But you really need to worry if you are very sick, very young, or very old, because they are the peoples who are most vulnerable to mold spores. The healthy young adults, they can handle it a little longer, but if you do see black mold in the basement, you really got to take care of it no matter who you are. Carbon monoxide, every year people die in New York City from carbon monoxide poisoning. Where have you heard carbon monoxide being a serious problem? Growing up or among your social groups? Or for those of you, some of you never thought about it. And this is carbon monoxide, not carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is something you exhale out of your mouth. Carbon monoxide is famous for being emitted out of an automobile, any kind of internal combustion engine. And so that's why you're told to make sure you don't run your car in a closed garage. If your car is on, you have to keep the garage door open, keep it well ventilated. And like you said, it's odorless, it's colorless, it's tasteless, so there's no way to know that carbon monoxide is filling the air. And the reason why we worry is because it can displace oxygen and cause somebody to suffocate to death. So if it's odorless, colorless, tasteless, then how do you know you're being poisoned by carbon monoxide? The first symptom of carbon monoxide poisoning is fatigue. And then after a while, you get a headache. And then you get confused. And not confused as in, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. Medical definition of confusion, which is you can't say your name. You can talk, you just don't remember what your name is. You don't remember where you are. You don't remember whether it's day or night, or the day of the week, and finally you don't realize you don't understand what's going on. That's medical definition of confusion. And then after that, if it's still not corrected, then you will die from asphyxiation. Well, I've stood behind automobile exhaust a lot, and I start coughing, and my ears start tearing. What's up with that? Because I thought you just said carbon monoxide can't be detected. So in order to protect people from automobile exhaust, gasoline companies put additives whose job it is to smell bad, to taste bad, to look bad, and to make people cough and tear. That's it. That's the additive. That's the only reason why they put it in the gasoline. so that when it's burnt, it does all that. So it makes it clear to everybody that it becomes noxious, it becomes unbearable, so people know, okay, maybe I should open a window, maybe I should open the garage door, to clue people in so they don't accidentally die from automobile exhaust. That's a law for gasoline, but there's another kind of fuel that New Yorkers, especially New Yorkers, suffer, are at risk from, which is the indoor heaters. So whether it's in the basement, where there's a boiler in the basement, or there's a portable heater that you buy from the store and you bring it in and it just warms up the room by itself. You pour in some fuel, you light it up, and it emits a warm orange glow and it warms the room. Anytime there's combustion, anytime fuel is turned into heat, then it also emits carbon monoxide. So how do boilers, carbon monoxide from basement boilers, kill people? It's supposed to be vented to the outside. But if it's a really, really old system, and then maybe there's a crack in the vent, maybe people were moving heavy stuff around, using the boiler room like a storage room, leaving heavy stuff around, and it kind of bumped up against the vent, caused a crack. Or maybe the duct tape used peeled a little, and now there's a crack. And so now carbon monoxide is coming out. What about people who buy the space heaters, the kerosene heaters, the butane heaters, put it in the middle of their living room or bedroom? It's getting cold. It's finally getting cold, and it's going to get a little colder. So if for any of you, do any of you have one of those? Like you got it, or your parents got it, or you remember having one when you were younger? So if you ever buy one, and it's about the size of a microwave oven. Doesn't look like one, it's just that size. It comes in a box about that size, and you're supposed to pour in the fuel, light it with a match, and it'll warm the room. There's a warning that says must be used in a ventilated room, well-ventilated room. But then think about it. If people don't know the science, don't know the danger, they're not gonna either not gonna read the label, or even if they read the label, they're gonna go, are you crazy? Why do you think I bought this thing? I bought it because it's frickin' cold outside. I want to warm my room. And now you're telling me I'm supposed to open a window and let all that cold air in, or let all this expensive warm air out? And so users often do not open the window. They do not allow the exhaust to vent out. They just let it accumulate in the room. And remember, it's odorless, tasteless, colorless, so there's no way to know they're being affected. And then what's the first symptom? Fatigued, tired. Well, lots of things make you tired. What if you come home from a long day? The boss is a jerk, the coworkers are backstabbers, the customers are stupid, and no wonder you're tired. No wonder you're fatigued. It's just like you work 2 jobs. You finally made it home, and no wonder you're fatigued. And then after a while, you start to feel a headache. Well, again, it's been a long day. No wonder you have a headache. So what do people do when they're tired and have a headache? They think, well, I'll have a beer, and then I'll take a nap, and then I'll go to sleep, and then I'll feel better in the morning. The problem is they don't wake up in the morning because they passed away at night. So even if they start to think, this is really wrong, the problem is that at that point they are confused. So their sense of judgment and their awareness of the situation becomes impaired. So they stay on that track of, it must have been a long day, I'll feel better in the morning, and they don't do anything about it. And then they die in their sleep. So carbon monoxide is dangerous in that way. It's creeping up slowly, but people don't realize it's happening until it's too late. So then, how are you supposed to know? So your body cannot be trusted to detect it. What else? What can you do then to protect yourself from possible carbon monoxide exposure? some fire detectors also detect carbon monoxide. Yes. So there's two separate. There's a smoke detector that everybody should have. And then there's a carbon monoxide detector that not everybody has, but I think that's a good idea. Unfortunately, I don't think it's required, but I think it's a good idea. So because you don't need to generate smoke to generate carbon monoxide. In fact, if you have this crazy idea to like turn on the stove or the oven to heat the house, not to cook food, to heat the house, then it's generating carbon monoxide at small rates, but accumulated over hours and hours and hours, and now it can be deadly. So get a carbon monoxide detector. In fact, get a combo, carbon monoxide and smoke detector in one device. It's not cheaper. It costs twice as much as buying. It costs as much as buying each one separately, but the benefit is that there's one battery. Ever do that? Ever hear the low battery beep from a smoke detector, and now you gotta hunt it down? You gotta use like an echolocate. You gotta use your own echolocation. You're playing hide and seek with your smoke detector, finding the one that's beeping. So don't let it get to that point. You should change the battery twice a year, no matter what level the battery is at. Twice a year. Whether it's a fresh battery or an old battery, just change it. In fact, there is a memorable event that happens twice a year on the same day. It's the same 2 days every year. And it's kind of hard to ignore because you're reminded of it over and over again. If you forget it, you get in big trouble. So everybody's aware of this event that happens twice a year. In fact, we just had it. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? What is it? Daylight savings. Yeah. If you don't remember daylight savings, you're in big trouble, right? You're late for work. You wake up an hour late and you miss the bus. So every daylight savings change the batteries. There, you'll never run low on battery, and you should invest the money to buy at least one carbon monoxide detector. Put it somewhere. If you have a basement, put it in the stairway down to the basement. Put one around the kitchen just in case. Protect yourself. Okay. That was for all buildings, all places where you work or live. Now, where you work more than where you live, there are these indoor pollutants. Asbestos is one of the greatest insulators man has ever invented. So once its properties were discovered, they were being put everywhere in all the buildings. All new construction added asbestos because it did such a great job of insulation. Unfortunately, decades later, construction workers who dealt with it, people who had to mess with it, started getting lung cancer, a certain kind of lung cancer called mesothelioma. And you may have heard radio commercials about it, like, did you get mesothelioma? Do you have mesothelioma? Call 1-800, get a lawyer, we'll fight for you. And what's happening is that the problem is that after exposure to asbestos, mesothelioma shows up decades later. And so if you're a worker, if you worked on that site, and now you turn around and try to get compensation, because you remember now, when you were working there, your employer did not give you an N95 mask, they did not follow proper safety protocols, and now you have cancer. And if you try to sue that company, then they would say, no, we did everything right, go away. Or the company just went out of business. It's no longer in business anymore. So, and you're just one guy. You're a low-ranking construction worker, and the executives won't even give you the time of day. So what happens, the reason why you get those radio commercials is because the lawyers are accumulating a class action lawsuit. And as a group, that creates a large political force to force those corporations to finally listen to you and provide some compensation. Queensboro community college buildings have asbestos in it. So every summer, there is a poster or a notice, like stay away from this building over the next 1 week because there's going to be an asbestos abatement. Sometimes they tape it up on paper. So you'll see it next summer. What happens is if they need to do some kind of construction, they may accidentally expose an asbestos panel. So to do that, so in order to prepare for that, they have to abate it. They do stuff so that the asbestos powders don't float in the air, get into people's lungs. Radon is radioactive gas, and not nuclear bomb, dirty bomb kind of radiation, but naturally occurring. So Earth has naturally occurring radiation, and it's not evenly distributed. It's in pockets. So sometimes the building just happens to be over a pocket of radon gas. It's nobody's fault. It's just the Earth burping up a bubble of radioactive gas. And so, unfortunately, even though it's nobody's fault, that building is now worth, the real estate value of that building just went to zero because word gets out and nobody else wants to build there anymore. Nobody wants to live there anymore. Yeah, so just be aware of that. And if you are in the market for a house, like if you want to buy your own house one of these days, you really need to have, it's worth it to pay for an independent investigator to go through the entire house, building and land, and look for any toxins and waste products and radon. Because once you sign the mortgage papers, that's it. You are now responsible for it. So like paying for an independent, not somebody recommended by the realtor, because they have a financial interest to make the sale, but your own choice of inspector is your last chance to walk away from the deal and not be stuck with a building that is worthless. Sick building syndrome is, forget this. Never mind this. I accidentally left it in there. Sick building syndrome is a diagnosis of exclusion. What does that mean? It means that you have to first rule out all other possible suspected causes, and only after all the other ones are proven wrong can you then diagnose a building as sick. What makes a building sick? Well, the problem is it's very vague, non-specific. All you know is that when you're in this building, you have fatigue, headache, you feel low energy, you get sicker, like you pick up respiratory infections more likely in the building, you're just poorly performing, and you really can't put your finger on it. And your other coworkers feel it too. So what's a possible cause of being fatigued, having a headache, having difficulty concentrating, not being productive? Maybe the building you're working in has a carbon monoxide leak. So before you diagnose sick building syndrome, you should send somebody downstairs with a carbon monoxide detector. Can anybody else think of a reason why you would feel tired at work? I already said the boss is a jerk, your coworkers are backstabbers, and the customers are stupid. So there's that reason. And now we have a carbon monoxide leak. There's another reason. Can you guys think of, and now this is, think outside my notes, the lecture, any other reason why you might feel tired at work? Go ahead. Oh, yes, speak up. Not getting enough sleep, absolutely. How many of you are tired right now because you didn't get enough sleep last night? So I understand. I've been there. Not too long ago I was there. And when I was a student, that happened all the time. So of course, a diagnosis by exclusion, you have an expert come in and start going through all of the possible reasons why your employees are feeling this way. And then one by one, you're able to prove that it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. Finally, after everything has been accounted for and you still can't explain it, now you have to consider sick building syndrome. And the sick building syndrome is that the building is making people sick. And you can understand why an employer would accept that reason as the last possible reason, because it sounds very expensive to fix. If the building is making people sick, then you gotta change the building, and that's gonna be millions and millions of dollars to change the building. So that's why they wanna avoid this diagnosis as long as possible. One of the cheaper ways to fix a sick building is maybe the air system is not ventilating properly. Here in this room, in building G208, we still can open the windows. We didn't now because it's kind of cold outside, but throughout the summer we kept these windows open. And even if air conditioning was coming down the vents, we still opened the window because we like to feel a little fresh air. But in the other place I work, which I won't mention, they sealed all the windows. They went through the whole building and sealed every window. And their reasoning was that they turned it into a central air management system. And they, of course, officially they say to improve comfort for everybody. But what they really did was to save money, right? Because when they crank the air conditioner and then people open the window because in their room it's now freaking cold, then that's wasting money. So by forcing everybody to rely on the central air system, they are saving money for the company, for the owners in the long run. But then all of our exhaled breath is being shared among our coworkers. It's got to be filtered. And there is a contract to send all of the air circulated through filters, like heavy-duty industrial strength filters, before it's sent back throughout the building. But the problem is that whenever large human organizations are involved, somebody gets lazy, starts cutting corners, managers are under pressure to reduce costs. So sometimes the filters don't get changed as much or at all. And now the filters are causing the problem, and then we're like re-inhaling other people's exhaled air. That could be contributing to sick building syndrome. So that's an example. Okay. That was air, toxins in the water, and we're really lucky to live in this country. You may not feel that way. You may see the 1% walking around you, enjoying their rich life, and you may hate that they are able to live a high life and you are stuck down here with the mortals. But compared to other people around the world, we really are living a blessed life. For example, I can go to any faucet in this building, turn it on, and I'll get drinkable water. It may not taste that great, but it is safe to drink. And for many of us who have lived in places with non-drinkable water, you will join me in appreciating the fact that this water is drinkable. And because I did that. I spent 2 years in a country where you had to drink bottled water only. The tap water was not drinkable. It was only good for washing. So not even washing. It was only good for toilet water. I used bottled water to shower every day, bathe really. So I will never be disrespectful to tap water again, at least New York City tap water. So, but 2 billion people, how many people are in this world? Over 8 billion, so a quarter of the world does not have access to proper sanitation. Sanitation, I thought we're talking about drinking water. It's all part of the same system. Sanitation includes availability of drinking water. Because if you not, at the immediate result, if you don't have a sewer system to take your poopy water away, where does it go? It sticks around. And it soaks into the water, into an outhouse, a latrine, or you just dump right onto a hole in the ground. And then that moisture settles down, soaks into the ground, makes its way to the water table, and then the contaminants work their way to the local well, or to a spring, and then which leads to a stream, and then somebody uses a bucket to scoop it out of the well, and then they drink it. So it's all part of this system. Without a modern sanitation system, then those folks are at risk for drinking contaminated water, which results in 5 million children dying every year. 5 million children dying every year from infections caused by contaminated water. And that's a real tragedy, because if we could just get them clean water, then it wouldn't happen. They wouldn't get infected. Why can't we get them clean water? Some countries, it's just not an option. The availability of resources, the country is poor, or their region of the country is poor, and so they don't have access to clean, drinkable water. And this situation is only getting worse because the population is growing. I put the word growing in quotes because it's complicated. 50 years ago, there was no doubt the world population was growing exponentially, and people were worried about the population in the world getting so big that it will cause society collapse, as we cannot make enough to feed the people and cause wars and revolution and all that. It's gotten complicated now, but that's beyond the scope of this class. But it is growing. So we're at over 8 billion now, and one of the popular theories is that it'll top off at 10 billion, and it kind of levels off at 10 billion now. So it's not going to grow to infinity, but anyway, the demand for fresh water will keep on increasing, especially from those countries, those parts of the world where it's not reliable anyway to begin with. Now, I did say that as Americans, we're very lucky. Maybe I should have said as New Yorkers, we're very lucky. Because if you lived in New Jersey, then access to fresh water is not guaranteed. About once every other year, there's some news story coming out of New Jersey where they have to drink only bottled water. They issue some part of, not the entire state, but some part of New Jersey issues a boil-only advisory or boil water advisory. Something happened to the water supply in one of those towns. And it's a different reason every time, but it's something about New Jersey water is not that reliable, not guaranteed. But New York City water is pretty well guaranteed for now. I say for now because hydrofracking is a way to get more oil out of the ground, and we, as a country, we do like our oil, that's for sure, but it has a risk to water quality. Farms use pesticides to keep the bugs off the plants, and what happens to those pesticides? Well, it runs off, right? After they spray the plants, then these pesticides end up in the water table, in the water stream, can contaminate creeks and streams and rivers, get into the oceans. Some of it stays on the produce. And these excess chemicals, these chemical runoffs, end up into the larger waterways and can affect the fish, sea animals, including hormones. Is it the cow hormones I talked about last time? Yes, that's a thing too. Pesticides is a thing too, but also human hormones can affect the fish. And where did the human hormone comes from? And it's from us. So this slide is talking about how Americans take the largest amounts of pharmaceuticals, medications, than any other country as a people. And all of these medications get peed out of us. Urine comes out of us in our urine. It's not something wrong with the meds, that's just how it works. Your doctor knows it. Your doctor sets the dosages, knowing that every hour a little bit comes out of the urine, and they have to give enough so it lasts all day in your body. And guess what? Americans take a lot of hormones, like testosterone for men, testosterone for supplements for men, estrogen supplements for women, and then they pee it out and they flush it down the sewer. And then what do they do out in the ocean? Well, then these hormones affect animals out in the ocean. So that's where this slide came from. Okay. New York City tap water at least is drinkable. Now, I say that as a city. Maybe your landlord is a slumlord, and your landlord does a horrible job of maintaining the pipes, the quality of the water in your building, and that's a real possibility, of course. That's illegal, by the way, but it still happens, though, because we live in the real world. But New York City water, as it came out of the treating plants, is safe to drink. It's treated so that no microorganisms live or survive in the water, so it's safe to drink. But there is this attitude among New Yorkers that they don't want to drink the water. It tastes bad, so they would rather drink bottled water. Bottled water tastes better. Although the bottled water in the vending machines here, the ones with the blue labels, always make my throat hurt. So I'm not sure. I would rather drink tap water than the bottled water here in the vending machines with the blue labels. But the ones with the green labels I have no problem with. But many people would much rather drink bottled water than tap water. And that's what the next few slides are about. So one of the reasons why New York City tap water may not be so tasty to you is that there's at least two additives. There's chlorine to kill any microbes in the water, and that's a good thing. You don't want bacteria or viruses from upstate or from the water reservoir coming into your body, right? So that's a good thing. Fluoride is also added by many cities to improve, reduce the risk of cavities, tooth cavities. If you Google for fluoride, if you search for fluoride, at least a few of your results will tell you how fluoride is dangerous for the brain. It's part of government mind control. It's toxic. And in a way, they're kind of right, because too much of anything is bad. So too much fluoride is bad. But in the small amounts that the city uses with fluoride, it's not bad, and it protects you from getting tooth cavities. Think of all the times you went to the dentist and for cavities, and you would have gotten twice as often. You would have had twice as many cavities if it wasn't for the fluoride in your water. So, many people say, never, I don't care about any of that. Bottled water just tastes better, and I bet bottled water is safer. Is bottled water safer? Well, to make a long story short, this slide is saying that guess where most of your bottled water comes from? And I'm going to tell you, it's from some city's tap water. So here you are telling yourself, I'd rather drink bottled water than tap water, but the water in the bottle came from somebody else's tap, another city's tap. If you look at any of these fancy schmancy bottled waters that you paid so much for, if you look at the label, it'll say sources include, and then the top one on the list will be like beautiful springs, mountain, orchard, valley. And then the second one is going to say Happy Mountain Magic Springs Fountain River. And then the third option will be city municipal water. So as long as it came from one of those three, the label is not lying. Then you have to wonder, what are the chances it came from the last one compared to the chances it came from the first or the second one? And remember, this bottle company is trying to save money. It's trying to maximize profits by getting water from the cheapest sources possible. So as long as it made one bottle from beautiful natural Valley Spring, it's not lying. And now it's free to make all the other bottles from the municipal tap. And it has not broken any law. So when you buy one of those bottles of water, it is most likely that you just drank somebody else's tap water. You would rather not drink New York City tap water, but now you're drinking somebody else's tap water. The tap water here tastes a little chlorine-y. That's true. I cannot deny it. There's a little bit of a taste in there. Reminds you of a swimming pool, maybe, because there's chlorine in the swimming pool. So yeah, yuck! I don't want to have chlorine. I don't like the taste of it. I like the taste of bottled water. So if the bottled water doesn't have chlorine, then does it have bacteria? Because they're not disinfecting the water. Well, they should. You may think they should, and maybe some of them can, some of them do, but some of them don't. And how will you know the difference? You can search for it, you can read their website, and they'll say, yes, we do, or no, we don't, or they won't even talk about it at all. But how many of you actually followed up? Question?
Why does Dasani have salt in it?
Salt is for flavor. So somebody asked, why does a certain brand of water have salt in it? Salt is flavor. If you've ever drank in pure distilled water, it tastes horrible. Minerals, it's not just salt, it's any minerals will make the water taste better. So yes, bottled water, it may not be chlorinated, therefore it may have bacteria in it. In that case, do people get sick from drinking bottled water? And they do. So here's an article of how illnesses happen with bottled water. And then what happens? If there is an illness from a bottled water, shouldn't there be a recall? Like, shouldn't the company recall the bottles because it's making people sick? And this article is saying they don't have to. So, have you ever been told you should do something but you don't have to? Then why would you do it? If you don't have to. If there's no penalty, if there's no crime, it's just a recommendation, then why would you do it? So they don't. They don't warn the public if there is a contamination because nobody makes them. Okay, and then finally, it's a plastic bottle. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Ever buy a bottle of water, not open it, and then put it in a car and then forgot. And then a while later, you go, oh, I forgot about this, and here it is. And what do you know? I happen to be thirsty, and you drink it. How did it taste? It tasted plasticky. So plastic is leaching into that water, and that creates this issue of microplastics, which is only now breaking into the public consciousness, like only this year. There wasn't much talk of microplastics before this year, but this increasing public awareness and interest in microplastics and what putting that in our body is doing is going to fuel more research and going to stimulate some new research reports in the future. I'm really looking forward to these. Like, what is having microplastics in our body? And it's even been detected in people's bloodstream. What is it actually doing to our bodies? The research is still ongoing. Stay tuned. Maybe by this time next year, I will be reporting on some of their initial results. So the tap water has the chlorine. It doesn't taste so great. It has fluoride. Maybe that's contributing to the taste. But there's also the presentation, because you're looking at this drinking water fountain, this water fountain in the hallway. It's not a very fancy look, and it may, and you can agree that food tastes different the way it's presented. It's not a blindfold taste test. You can see it, and if you just saw like somebody ugly drink from that fountain, suddenly you don't feel like drinking from the same fountain, even though it's perfectly safe. Versus if you bought a bottle of water and you twist the plastic cap and you get that satisfying click, that makes it feel like the safety ring is being ripped away, so you know that safety cap is intact, and you get this feeling of satisfaction that nobody else drank from this bottle. So that is a psychological effect, and it makes you think the water tastes better. It's like if two restaurants, a very expensive fancy restaurant and a very cheap dive, they both serve exactly the same food, people will walk away from the fancy restaurant thinking it tastes better, even though the food is exactly the same. So it's another version of the more you believe in something, the more your body responds to it. This time it's your sense of taste. But this idea, this phenomenon of the more you believe something, the stronger you believe something, the more your body will change in response to that belief. Is that familiar to anybody?
Sounds like the placebo effect.
Exactly. It's the placebo effect. So I warned you guys early in the semester, the placebo effect is everywhere. It's especially in sales. It's especially in medicine, of course, and the way drugs work, but it's definitely in taste, for sure, and all kinds of supplements. The placebo effect is everywhere. So I have a plastic bottle with me. I brought it. I brought 3 bottles because it was going to be a long day, I knew. So now if you have a plastic bottle at home, then I want you to look at it, hit pause, get the bottle, bring it back, hit play again. And what do you know? There's about a quarter of this bottle is full of fluid still. Imagine now a quarter of the bottle you're holding is full of gasoline or fossil fuel, crude oil. Crude oil is actually more accurate, like the thing that came out of the ground before it's used to turn into consumer goods. Imagine this bottle, a quarter of the bottle of whatever you're holding in your hand is a quarter of the way is filled with fossil fuel. That's how much fossil fuel it took to get that bottle in your hand. Every bottle. How is that possible? That's a lot of fossil fuel, and it's so little plastic. So, plastic is made from petroleum. Did you know that? It's long chain hydrocarbon. Where'd you get the hydrocarbon from? From fossil fuels. That's the cheapest way. And then in order to convert that crude oil into plastic, it takes a factory, and the factory uses energy. Where did that energy come from? Probably burning of fossil fuels from a power plant. And then it has to ride a truck or a ship to send that plastic to a bottle-making factory. Then it has to be turned into bottles, and that factory then ride another truck or ship to be sent to the bottle filling factory where it's filled with your favorite drink. And then it's sent by ship or truck to the supermarket warehouse, who then sends it by truck to the local grocery stores. And then you take mass transit or a car to the grocery store to buy that bottle. That's where all the fossil fuels got used up there. So which means that every time you use up a bottle and throw it away, you increase the demand for fossil fuels by that much. Because now somebody has to make another bottle for another customer to replace the bottle you just bought. And that's where filtered water can really make a difference. When I was a young man and I had more money, I used to buy only bottled water. So I would buy one of these cases every week from the grocery store and carry it home. And I would drink my way through it, and then end of the week I would buy another case. But nowadays I have a filter system. I won't say the name, but there's really only one pitcher filter brand that you can buy in their local grocery store around here. But anyway, I just change out the filter. Now the filter is about $9 now, and it lasts 2 months, or that's the manufacturer recommendation. And and it helps me filter tap water into several buckets a day, several a day. So who knows how much water I'm actually going through a day. And maybe I'm going through an entire case worth of water a day, which means I'm not buying all of these bottles. I'm not throwing it away, even to the recycling plant. And there's a whole nother issue about recycling in this country. But I'm not using up single-use bottles. Instead, I'm reusing a plastic bottle. And that's one plastic bottle. I actually carry 2 metal bottles, steel bottles, to also reduce my use of plastic. So when you see me drinking from my plastic bottle, you may say, what the hell are you doing? You hypocrite. You're giving a lecture about the dangers or the evils of plastic, and here you are drinking out of a plastic bottle. Well, the thing is that I have 3 bottles I brought today. I brought 2 metal bottles and 1 plastic bottle, which means I reduced my plastic use by 2/3. And that is a mantra I've been saying over and over again from the beginning of the semester. Don't try to be perfect. Don't try to live a life with no plastic. That's actually impossible. In this culture, in this society, it's impossible to live without plastic bottles. But you can reduce your use of plastic bottles. Imagine if everybody in the world reduced their use of plastic bottles by half. If you bought a case of bottled water every week, how about if you reused if you bought a reusable bottle, not a single use, but a reusable bottle, and you only bought a case of bottled water every other week, reducing your usage of plastic by half. What would that do? It would make all of these plastic bottle makers sell only half, which would reduce their income by half. It would reduce their total output production by half. What would they do? Find some other way to make money. They would keep on making plastic bottles, but only half. And they would find some other way to beef up their profits. Meanwhile, the amount of plastic used to make in bottles, the amount of plastic bottles thrown away is reduced by half. The amount of plastic bottles that need to be recycled is reduced by half throughout the world. So this is how you can actually make a difference. This is how you can vote with your wallet. Find ways to not completely get rid of plastic, but reduce your use of it by using reusable bottles when you can, metal bottles if you can. It's a little hard because these bottles are $25, which is a little steep it was a little steep for me, but I'm thinking I teach this, I should live it too. And by the way, I still buy plastic bottles from vending machines once in a while. Maybe like once a month I still buy a plastic bottle from a vending machine. Because even after planning ahead, like bringing 3 bottles, sometimes I'm still thirsty after 3 bottles. Or sometimes I'm just really in the mood for another bottle of coffee or a soda. So I go to the vending machine and I finally buy one about once a month. So when you see me, don't think, oh my God, my teacher is a hypocrite. He talks about the evils of plastic and vending machines, and there he is buying one. I used to buy from the vending machine around here at least once a day. This was decades ago. I used to buy 2 things, like multiple times from the vending machine, and now I only buy it once a month. So I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to do a little better than the last time. You should eat more fish, like I said in the nutrition lecture, up to like 2 or 3 times per week. But now you have to watch out that you eat the right kind of fish, because fish, as a result of human pollution, this is definitely human pollution, that there's mercury, toxic levels of mercury in the ocean, so that fish have mercury in it. So what kind of fish should you buy? Well, you Google for it. You search, before you buy your favorite kind of fish, first look it up. Search for fish in your favorite search engine and see what comes up. Let's see, who is avoiding eye contact? Who is avoiding eye contact? I haven't heard from you lately. Name a fish you like to eat. Tuna. Tuna. Mercury levels. La. And I always skip the artificial intelligence answer because they hallucinate. They get things wrong. Let's see, healthline.com, Consumer Reports. I haven't clicked on Consumer Reports lately. Let's see, oh, here. Oh, okay. So here are some talks of tuna. So, but this is a lot to read. This is a lot to read. So is there a faster way? Like, let's say you're in the supermarket and you're thinking of eating fish tonight and you wondering, and you're looking at a package of fish and wondering, should I buy this or not? So let's see, the Food and Drug Administration. Oh, look at this. FDA have a chart. And like there's a lot of fish here. So what you can do is search for that fish that you're thinking of and seeing what their mercury level is. Oh, why should you care about mercury? Because mercury is toxic to the brain. Now, for mature adults, our brains are mostly developed, so only extremely high levels of mercury is toxic. But what about for a pregnant woman or a developing child? Their brains are not yet fully formed. Then mercury levels do make a difference. So here, the link that I did include in the slides, they took some of the more popular fish and ranked them by best, good, or avoid. Pregnant women and developing children should eat only fish in the best areas, low levels or best or low. Adults can eat from the good or medium level mercury, and nobody should be eating from the high or avoid categories. So you said tuna, without spending time to zoom in, because you guys can go to this link yourself. I see tuna here, tuna canned light, but then I see tuna here, and I see tuna here. Tuna is in all three categories. What's up with that? What's causing tuna to end up in all three categories? It's the different kind of tuna, because tuna is a category in itself. Tuna is not one specific species of fish. This one in the low mercury is skipjack tuna, and this one in the medium is yellowfin tuna, and this one in the avoid or high levels is big-eye tuna. And so if you're about to buy your favorite brand of tuna, you should search for that name, specific and mercury, and see what comes up. Same with any other kind of fish you want to buy. So you want to eat fish 2 to 3 times per week because it's good for the heart, good for the brain. You just don't want to eat fish that is high in mercury because it's bad for the brain, ironically, because of the toxins in it. It's good for the brain because of omega-3, but bad for the brain because of mercury. What do I eat? Sardines. Sardines, wild caught, are always in the low mercury range. But I have other reasons for eating sardines. Convenience, cost, effort, taste, like that. Speaking of fish, there is something you should know as a consumer. I did say humans were overpopulating the world. We're up to over 8 billion now. Most of them like to eat fish, so there's a demand for fish, and there is a real concern that we are overfishing. We are stripping the oceans of fish. We're driving certain popular species to extinction, and to the point where our future generations won't have good fish to eat with anymore. So as a result, there was this attempt, is an attempt to make it more sustainable. So instead of catching fish out in the wild, which is called wild caught, how about if we put fish in farms? Farms like pastures and meadows. Well, no, fish need water, but what if instead of catching fish out in the ocean, we made swimming pools, filled them with water, filled it with the stuff fish need to survive, and then put fish in it and grow them like a farm. That's sustainable, it's profit driven, and then the companies will find ways to make it more efficient, and then everybody will get fish who want fish. Everybody will be happy, right? What do farms do to save money? There are 3 ways that corporate farms reduce cost in order to maximize profits and still keep the price of the food down so you're willing to buy it. Time, space, and feed. And this is for any farm. Plant farms, cow farms, chicken farms, and now also fish farms. To reduce time, they give hormones so that the product grows up faster, so it is ready to sell on the market sooner. To reduce space, because they have to pay for real estate, right? They cram animals together. This is especially true for animals. Animals in tight spaces, so they're not free to walk around, and that'll help save money on real estate. But the problem is now that they're jammed so tight together that if one of them gets sick, then everybody else gets sick. So to reduce infection rates, they actually put antibiotics in the food to feed the animals, which causes consumers to worry, like, I don't want no antibiotics in me, and that creates an issue. And then food. To make things cost less, you need to find cheaper ways to feed these animals, feed these fish. And the cheapest thing, like what do you think a cow should eat? You guys should know this, right? What do you expect cows to eat? What would they like to eat? In movies, TV? Grass. Yeah, you would expect. Well, do you know what's even cheaper than grass? You know, the stuff that you mow and throw away, the ones you pay other people to get rid of for you. Cheaper than grass is corn. America makes a lot of corn, and we make so much that the volume, supply and demand, is driven the price of corn cheaper than grass. And so they feed it to cows and pigs and chickens and fish. Fish eat corn. Are fish supposed to eat corn? Did they evolve for millions of years to eat corn? Well, no, but it's calories. So that's one example of. Oh, fish eat a lot of things. In fact, if you like tilapia, do not Google for tilapia. It's one of those, if you like a food, don't watch it being made. If you like tilapia, and tilapia is very popular because it's very cheap. But why is it so cheap? Here's an explanation. McGill is a university in Canada. So if you like to continue to eat tilapia, do not watch this. Do not read this article. They put antibiotics in the food so they don't get infections, but then people worry about the antibiotics in the food, etc. Salmon is supposed to be pink, and that's what you expect. When you shop for salmon in the grocery store, it's supposed to be this orange, pink color, rosy. Where did it get this color from? And it's actually getting this color from out in the wild, swimming in the wild, eating plankton in the wild. That's what turns salmon color pink. If you captured some salmon, put them in a pool in a fish farm, and then let them reproduce, then the next generation will not have pink skin. They will have gray skin like any other fish, because they didn't swim in the wild. So what do corporations do to farm salmon so that the flesh is still pink-orange, as consumers expect? They add food coloring. They inject the flesh with food coloring to make it turn that color. Or they add food coloring into the food of their fish farms. How will you know if the salmon you are about to buy in the grocery store is farm raised or wild caught? Well, it should say wild caught. Another way to know is the price, because wild caught salmon is expensive, farm salmon is cheap. But finally, to clinch it, you turn the package around, you read the ingredients, and if one of the ingredients is food coloring, and sometimes they won't say food coloring, but they will say a name, and if you search for it, it turns out to be a food coloring, farm raised. That's the world we live in. In my local grocery stores, the two nearest me, you cannot find wild caught fish in any of that aisle. The only way to find wild caught fish, the closest place that sells wild caught fish for me is Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, where rich people care about these things. Okay, so those were toxins in the water. Pollutions in the land, well, that one is a little more straightforward. There's things that we throw away, consumer goods that we throw away. So the answer to that is recycling. And here in New York City, we're all about that recycling, right? How many of you are aware of the new one, the composting law? Have you noticed that now you have the regular garbage, the cardboard, and the plastic containers, right? You're supposed to separate those. Are you aware that there's now a fourth container? It's brown. You're supposed to put food scraps in it. You're supposed to separate food scraps from your regular garbage and leave it in that brown container, and that's called composting. So radiation is the radon thing. And I just wanted to make it clear that radiation is not just nuclear bomb radiation or nuclear power plant radiation. It's any emission of wavelengths. So light is a radiation. You're giving off radiation right now in infrared heat. When you listen to the radio, it's a signal that's radiating from the station tower. So when your radio, when your phone receives a signal and it starts playing beautiful music, it's from radio waves. And so that's radiation is just this category of energy emitting from a single source. The different kinds of radiation, now the radiation everybody's scared of is ionizing radiation. Now that's from a nuclear power plant, a dirty bomb, a nuclear bomb, X-rays, all that stuff, and that has to be tightly controlled. But the non-radiation is just energy. It doesn't cause cancers, mutations, it's harmless. Radio waves, your ceiling lights, and your microwaves. Inside the microwave, yes, it causes food to heat up, but there is a electronic case around the box so that you are not exposed to the microwaves. Power plants, there was an environmental theme in this lecture, and nuclear power plants were a source of fear long ago because people were afraid of radiation sickness. They were worried, what are we going to do with the nuclear waste that these power plants generated, because they can stick around. They can be a problem for thousands of years. Chernobyl is a famous story of a nuclear power plant that went critical. Our version is 3 Mile Island, and so nuclear power went out of favor. But now, when we are faced with global warming, nuclear power is becoming like a preferred alternative. If we keep burning coal and fossil fuels in power plants, we're making the global warming worse. At least nuclear power doesn't do that. It creates nuclear waste, which will last for thousands of years. That's bad, but there's a way to control it, to contain it, and the nuclear danger is localized. At least it's not threatening the planet. So nuclear power plants are gaining popularity as an alternative to global warming. And that is a slide. Global warming, also known as climate change. So the winter is coming, and sure enough, somebody you know is going to walk out into a cold winter day and say, I guess global warming is a hoax after all. as like a side joke, a trolling joke. Global warming means average temperatures around the world. Some areas will get more cold than usual, some areas will get more warm than usual, but the average temperature will creep up 1 degree at a time. For example, New York City has been having warmer winters for a while now. I haven't seen a really heavy snowfall in years around here. I mean like up to my knees. And the last time it only happened one day out of the entire year, and that was years ago. Now, is that global warming? I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist, but you know, winters are getting warmer around here. It's getting less and less severe. Meanwhile, the summers are getting hotter around here, and local and national fires are increasing. So that's climate change. That's a more accurate thing. More accurate term is climate change, meaning your local area is having unusual weather patterns more and more since your parents remembered it, since your grandparents remember it. Why do we care? Why should anybody care? Well, if the world entirely is getting warmer, it's going to change where plants grow best, where animals prefer, where fresh water is available, where land where people can live will start changing locations. It will cause famine, displacement of whole populations, and when populations move, it results in resource wars, lack of water, drinkable water, food, places to live. A more local example, and this is a worst case scenario, I need to make this clear. This is a worst case scenario, not likely to happen, is if the world gets warmer, then we do have these North Pole and South Pole ice caps. They are high above sea level, they're frozen water. If more of it starts to melt, then the water from those ice caps will come down into the ocean, cause the ocean to rise. How much? A couple of feet. A couple of feet. A typical wave is several feet high. Why would we care about a couple of feet? Meaning that the highest wave ever that year is a couple of feet higher. The lowest wave that year is a couple of feet higher, which could result in not permanent flooding of New York City coasts, but those times when there's like a really bad storm will become more common. How many of you were around for Hurricane Sandy that flooded out the Rockaways, cut power? I was in the ambulance company responding to those calls. We could have more Hurricane Sandys. So we'll have, most of the days of the year will be nice and pleasant, but those days of flooding, excessive flooding, will increase. And now when we have seawater, salt water flooding into the subways, that's a whole nother different story than non-salty rainwater flooding into the subways, because seawater, salty water, corrodes electronics. So that could really mess up New York City if we keep having seawater flooding into the subways and causing Hurricane Sandy level events more often. So think globally, act locally, conserve plastic, try not to buy as much plastic as you usually do, find ways to recycle, use less power. That's called thinking globally, acting locally, and I'm done with the lecture. So I overstepped my welcome for a couple of minutes. Thank you for your patience. Good luck on exam 2. Whoever was late, come up so I can mark you late. See you next week.